In this episode, we're going to focus on the part of incident response that often determines whether a difficult situation stays contained or turns into a larger crisis, which is how incident details are communicated to the right stakeholders at the right time. When an incident happens, people immediately want answers, but answers come in stages, and the gap between what is known and what is being asked can create stress, rumors, and rushed decisions. A mature privacy program treats communication as an operational control, not as an afterthought, because communication shapes trust, shapes legal exposure, and shapes how quickly the organization can coordinate an effective response. The challenge is that different stakeholders need different levels of detail, different timing, and different formats, and you cannot treat everyone as if they are the same audience. Legal requirements can demand notifications with specific content and deadlines, while business requirements can demand clarity that supports decision-making and continuity. Poor communication can create contradictions, oversharing, or undersharing, and all three can cause harm. Strong communication creates a consistent story that evolves as facts are confirmed, while remaining honest about uncertainty. By the end, you should be able to describe how incident communications are planned, controlled, and delivered so they meet both legal obligations and the practical needs of the business. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good starting point is recognizing that stakeholders are not just people who are curious, but people who have responsibilities that change what they need to know. Internal stakeholders often include privacy leadership, security teams, legal counsel, business owners, communications teams, customer support, and executives who must make risk decisions. External stakeholders can include affected individuals, regulators, or oversight bodies, business partners, and sometimes vendors who must assist in investigation and remediation. Each stakeholder group has a different purpose, and communication should be designed to support that purpose rather than dumping every detail on everyone. For example, an executive may need to know what the impact could be, what actions are underway, and what decisions are needed, while a technical responder needs precise facts about systems, time windows, and access paths. Customer support needs simple, accurate guidance on what to say and what not to say, so they do not improvise. A regulator may require a specific description of the incident and mitigations, while affected individuals need clear information about what happened and what it means for them personally. A key beginner misunderstanding is assuming transparency means telling everyone everything immediately. Good incident communication is targeted transparency, where the right people get the right information at the right time. Because incidents unfold over time, communication must be designed around stages, and those stages usually align with how certainty develops. Early on, you may only know that something might have happened, such as an alert that a file was accessible or a report that an email went to the wrong person. Later, you may confirm what data was involved, who accessed it, and whether the exposure is ongoing. Even later, you may understand root causes and long-term remediation. If communication ignores stages and tries to provide a complete story immediately, it will either be wrong or it will be so vague that it is unhelpful. A mature approach separates initial notifications from updates, and it treats updates as part of the plan, not as admissions of failure. This staged approach also protects credibility, because stakeholders are more likely to trust a team that says what is known, what is unknown, and when the next update will arrive. A second beginner misunderstanding is assuming uncertainty is weakness. When an incident response, uncertainty is normal, and honest uncertainty is safer than confident guessing. Communication is strongest when it is aligned with documented assessment and evidence. That is why the incident handling steps of assessment and documentation matter so much, because they feed communication with facts rather than speculation. Legal requirements are one of the main forces shaping incident communication because they can define who must be notified, what must be included, and how quickly notifications must occur. Even when you do not memorize specific legal regimes, the operational reality is that many laws and contracts impose time-bound notice obligations. Those obligations may require describing the nature of the incident, the categories of data involved, the number or approximate number of affected individuals, and the measures taken or planned to address the issue. They may also require describing potential consequences and providing contact points for further information. The difficulty is that these details may not be fully known early, which is why staged updates and careful wording are essential. Legal requirements also influence who should approve communications, because inaccurate statements can create exposure, and legal counsel often needs to review outward-facing messages. At the same time, legal caution should not become paralysis that delays necessary internal coordination or required notices. The privacy program often acts as the bridge between legal expectations and operational reality, ensuring that communications are timely, accurate, and defensible. For beginners, the key is that legal requirements are not just about avoiding penalties. They are also about ensuring individuals and stakeholders receive meaningful information when it matters. Business requirements shape incident communication in a different way because the business needs information to keep operating and to make decisions under uncertainty. Business leaders need to understand whether services must be paused, whether customers may be impacted, and what resources are required to respond. Product teams may need to coordinate rapid fixes, while customer-facing teams may need to handle increased inquiries. Partners may need to know whether shared data or integrated services are involved, especially if their operations are affected. Business communication often needs speed and clarity, but it cannot sacrifice accuracy, because inaccurate internal statements can lead to wrong decisions that worsen the incident. This is why mature incident communications often include clear action items, such as what teams should do immediately and where questions should be routed. Another business requirement is consistency, because conflicting messages from different teams can create confusion and increase reputational damage. A coordinated message ensures that executives, support, and communications teams are operating from the same understanding. The privacy program helps by translating technical findings into plain language that business stakeholders can use without misinterpreting details. For beginners, it helps to see incident communication as part of business continuity, because it allows the organization to respond coherently rather than chaotically. One of the most practical skills in incident communication is learning how to balance detail and clarity, because too little detail leads to confusion, while too much detail can overwhelm, create unnecessary panic, or expose sensitive information. Internal communications to responders can be detailed, including time windows, system names, and specific data flows, because responders need precision. Internal communications to broader audiences should usually focus on what the incident is, what is being done, what the expected impact might be, and what actions are required of the recipients. External communications often need even more careful detail selection, because you want to inform without exposing additional risk. For example, describing exactly how a system was exploited might help attackers if disclosed too broadly, while describing the categories of data involved helps individuals understand potential harm. Another clarity principle is to avoid jargon that causes misinterpretation, because terms like breach, exposure, and compromise can be used differently by different groups. A mature approach defines key terms in plain language within the communication or uses simpler phrasing that avoids confusion. For beginners, the lesson is that clear communication is not shorter communication. It is communication that is easy to interpret correctly. You can be clear and detailed at the same time if the message is organized around what the audience needs. Approval and governance are critical in incident communication because uncontrolled messaging can cause inconsistencies and legal risk. A good incident communication process defines who is responsible for drafting messages, who must review them, and who has authority to send them. This is not about bureaucracy for its own sake, but about preventing the common problem where one team tells a story that another team later contradicts. Governance also helps manage timing, because messages should go out when required and when they support coordination, not based on rumor pressure. In many organizations, legal counsel reviews external notifications, security reviews technical accuracy, and privacy leadership ensures the message aligns with obligations and commitments. Communications teams may ensure tone and clarity, while executives may approve high-impact statements. Internal messages to operational teams may be faster, but they should still be controlled enough to prevent confusion and to ensure sensitive details do not spread unnecessarily. Another governance concept is keeping a single source of truth, such as a structured incident record that captures confirmed facts, so all messages draw from the same foundation. When governance is clear, people spend less time arguing about who should speak and more time solving the incident. For beginners, it helps to remember that communication is an action with consequences, so it should be treated like other high-impact actions, with roles and controls. Another major concept is audience segmentation, which means tailoring communications based on who needs to know and why. Executives might get summaries with risk, impact, and decision needs, while responders get detailed updates and tasks. Customer support might get a short script and guidance on escalation, while partner managers get information about integration effects and what partners should watch for. Individuals affected by an incident need direct, respectful language that explains what happened, what data is involved, and what steps the organization is taking. They also need guidance on what they can do, such as monitoring accounts or changing passwords, but guidance should be realistic and not shift blame onto the individual. Regulators may need more structured information about scope, cause, and mitigations. The program should also consider employees as stakeholders, because internal rumors can damage morale and lead to inconsistent external statements if employees talk publicly. Audience segmentation prevents the mistake of sending one giant message that tries to satisfy everyone and ends up satisfying no one. It also helps avoid unnecessary exposure of sensitive details by limiting distribution to those who need the details. For beginners, this is a key maturity marker. Effective incident communication is not one message. It is a set of aligned messages designed for different responsibilities. Timing is another essential part of incident communication because the best message delivered too late can be worse than a good message delivered on time. Timing is shaped by legal deadlines, but it is also shaped by practical coordination needs. Early internal communications can help teams avoid creating new evidence loss, such as overwriting logs, and can help ensure containment actions are coordinated. Early customer support guidance can prevent inconsistent responses to inquiries. Early partner communication can help prevent cascading failures in integrated systems. At the same time, premature external communication can create confusion if facts are wrong, so timing requires judgment. A mature approach sets expectations that details will evolve and commits to updates, rather than waiting for perfect certainty. Another timing tactic is to send initial notifications with what is confirmed and what is being investigated, then follow with updates as evidence improves. This keeps stakeholders informed without forcing the organization to make unsupported statements. Timing also includes choosing the right channel, because urgent operational updates should go through channels that reach the right people quickly, while formal notices may require more controlled channels. For beginners, the key is that timing is a control, and like all controls, it should be planned rather than improvised. The content of incident communications should be anchored in the incident record, because the record is what keeps the story consistent and defensible. The record typically includes what happened, when it happened, how it was discovered, what data might be involved, what containment actions were taken, and what remediation is planned. Communications should draw from confirmed facts, clearly label uncertain elements, and avoid making definitive statements that could be disproven later. Another content principle is to avoid unnecessary speculation about motives, such as claiming an incident was malicious without evidence, because that can mislead stakeholders and complicate legal analysis. Communications should also avoid minimizing the issue, because minimizing can backfire if later findings show greater impact. A respectful, factual tone tends to be safest because it focuses on actions and commitments. For affected individuals, communications should include empathy and clarity, but without dramatic language that inflames fear. For internal teams, communications should include clear next steps and escalation instructions, so people know how to contribute without creating noise. The overall goal is to make communications actionable, because information without action can become anxiety rather than coordination. Another important angle is coordination with third parties, because incidents often involve vendors, processors, or partners, and communication must be synchronized across organizational boundaries. If a vendor is investigating, The organization may need updates from them to assess scope and make notification decisions. If the organization must instruct vendors to contain or remediate, communication needs to be clear and tracked because vendor action affects risk. If partners are impacted, they may need to take steps on their side, and unclear communication could cause them to overreact or ignore real threats. Contracts often include notification obligations and timelines, which adds complexity because you may have both legal requirements and contractual requirements operating simultaneously. Coordinating across parties also raises confidentiality issues because you may need to share enough detail for action while avoiding disclosure of sensitive investigative information. A mature program defines communication channels and points of contact for vendors and partners in advance, so it is not negotiating contact lists during a crisis. For beginners, the key is that stakeholder communication is not limited to internal teams and affected individuals. It extends to the ecosystem that processes data, and coordination across that ecosystem can determine whether the incident is contained quickly or drags on. When you bring everything together, communicating incident details is a balancing act that must be disciplined and intentional. It must meet legal obligations for notice content and timing, while also meeting business needs for clarity, coordination, and continuity. It must be staged as facts emerge, segmented by audience responsibilities, and governed through clear review and approval paths. It must be anchored in documentation so messages remain consistent and defensible, and it must avoid speculation and uncontrolled detail sharing that creates new risk. For brand new learners, the key takeaway is that communication is not separate from incident response. It is one of the controls that makes the response effective because it aligns people around actions, reduces confusion, and supports accountability. A strong privacy program communicates in a way that is calm, factual, and purposeful, and it does that even when the incident itself is stressful. When the organization can do this reliably, it not only reduces harm during incidents, it also strengthens trust that the program can handle difficult moments with professionalism. That trust is one of the most valuable outcomes incident communication can produce.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.